Hello, everyone, and welcome to an ALEC TV live stream. I'm Catherine Mortensen from ALEC Public Affairs, and joining me in the studio is Nino Marchese. Nino is our Task Force Director on Civil and Criminal Justice Reform. And joining us remotely from his home in Dudley, Massachusetts, is John Wayne Cormier Jr. So welcome, John. We want to get right into it today. I think there's one of the few things Americans can agree on these days is the need for criminal justice reform. Even if we don't all agree on just, what that should look like, I think we are all aware that there are problems in our criminal justice system. And what we want to talk to you about today, John, is your experience having served time in the Worcester County Jail there in Massachusetts. You were privileged, if that's the right word, to go through several innovative, unique programs that were obviously instrumental and key in getting you to a place in your life where you were living with dignity and not dependence. That's a phrase we got from the sheriff in Worcester County, Lou Evangelitis. We spoke with him a couple weeks ago. That's really the focus of the reforms he has made in your community. So that's what we want to talk to you about today. And welcome. Nino, I'll let you get going with some questions.
Yeah, it was great. We got to talk to Sheriff Evangelitis last week, or the week before, I believe. And he told us all about these great programs. So before we get into the programs, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, the story behind what led to your incarceration, and what you were dealing with, what kind of problems led to that story.
Sure. So first of all, thank you guys so much for having me on. It's an honor and a privilege. And I really think that these are the kind of conversations that are going to make changes when organizations like you are reaching out to the little guy and asking his perspective. That's the communication is really what changes things, I think. So for me, what happened is I had gotten tangled up with drugs and alcohol for the better part of my adult life. And if you can imagine for a moment what it would be like to be completely segregated from the people that you love, and the things that you do was just all based around finding ways and means to get more. There was really nothing personal. It was just the way that we had to live our lives in order to find comfort with ourselves. So for me, it became that way for the better part of a decade, homeless, heartless, helpless, and hopeless, trudging through the streets of Worcester, Massachusetts, until I was given what we call a gift of desperation, and that is an acronym. I was then brought into custody for a masked armed robbery because I was to the point where I was so desperate that I needed to get the cash in the drawer, and I had no other rational way to go about making myself feel better. And so I did that. I ended up going to jail, and when I got there, the problem was, so it was a normal thing for me to go to jail. I had been in and out quite some time in my experience as an alcoholic and an addict. And when I got there, it was just the same run-of-the-mill routine for me. It was like, okay, guys, here I am. But this time it was a masked armed robbery, and that is a big deal. So they put me on a high-profile unit. And on that high-profile unit, I was with other inmates who were looking at life in prison. And I had a realization one morning when we were sitting at Chow, which is right on the tier, and I realized that almost every guy that sat at my table with me were inmates who had killed someone, who had taken human life or multiple lives. And what occurred to me in that moment was that these people weren't killers from what I've seen. I mean, sure, they may have taken life, but they were just alcoholics and addicts who had done something desperate in a moment, and then they lost their life and have to live with it. And that was the moment for me where I realized I had to make some changes, that I still had a chance. And so I started doing everything I could in the jail, which nowadays is a lot different than it used to be as far as opportunities that are available. And that's a play on word, opportunity. I got myself into the Short Stop program, which is a drug and alcohol rehabilitation program. And once I got there, what happens when you're there is that you're separate from the rest of the general population. And I think that's important because now you're separated from the guys who want a new way of life and the guys that didn't have a care. They were just there kind of going through the motions. So you're kind of separating the wheat from the chaff kind of deal. And now when I was in that program, I started to really buckle down and have some self-reflection and find ways and means to cultivate a better life for myself. And during this time, a music program was offered. It was a brand new program. It had never been released before. And I'm a musician. I've always been a musician and artist, and I find a lot of relief in creating music, and it's therapeutic. And I think we all know that innately. But once I got into the music program, and this was the game changer for me, because that's when I was introduced to what incentive, and that is what changed. Because I remember specifically an argument over a cup of coffee. I want to say a week or two before I had the concert, the graduation concert, which we were allowed to invite our family and friends into the facility. And by the way, this program was ran by a local college called Anna Maria. They're a local school who has an outstanding music program, and they brought their people in to teach us a songwriting course, which as an artist helped me develop my skills incredibly. And there you see a picture of our graduating concert. And so about a week before that concert, I had an argument over a cup of coffee on the unit, and there was a little bit of a conflict there. But what happened is I walked away from that conflict because I had this incentive, this opportunity to do something with myself. And that's when I walked away. You hear it all the time, the bigger man walks away. And I walked in to this whole new life that I have for me now. I got out of the jail on parole. I ended up coming to the Webster Dudley area, and I facilitate a music and recovery meeting every weekend at the local recovery center, which is intimately involved with the jail, because the sober house I went to is connected with the jail. So the important thing is really just this whole community aspect of recovery that is something different and something very special. So it all came from that incentive and that desire to want to change, and the realization that most of the people in jail are just addicts and alcoholics like myself. And, they just need an opportunity.
John, thanks for sharing some of your story. I want to play a short video clip from that concert that you gave when you were an inmate. Let's see.
Very cool. Very cool stuff. It seems like a pretty big program too, that you guys had a lot of people there involved that took that opportunity. I think you touched on this a little bit, how the program kind of changed your perspective. Obviously, it's led to good things. I think that's kind of why, we're here today having this conversation. But what I'd kind of like to get at, because I think a lot of these ideas, these community corrections ideas, prison rehabilitation ideas, all these different programs that are designed to ultimately reduce recidivism, they can definitely sound good on paper. And that's not to say that they're not great or can't play out great. But I'm interested, and I'd like to hear what exactly about the program was it for you that really clicked and really changed your perspective to want you to ultimately get your life back on track in your own words.
So me being a musician, I think I was a little, it's kind of just a special thing to me in general, just being that it was a music program, but the important thing I think to focus on as far as like recidivism and guys going in and out is the incentive part. Because now here you have an incentive for an inmate to step out of the normal kind of lockdown thing that you go through in general population. With incentive comes action. Now I have a reason to act, and it might be a small thing, but in custody, if you have the incentive to stay a part of something, that's therapy, then that incentive alone is trouble. It's going to give you a solid foundation to kind of grow from, and it keeps you out of trouble, and it keeps you focused. And like a lot of guys in the music program with me, they wanted to make sure that they were going to get to that graduation and that they were going to have their family come in to have a physical visit, which isn't something that the jail normally does. So the incentive is really an important thing. That's how you get guys interested. You know, the opportunity has to outweigh the obstacle. If the obstacle is being in jail, or the obstacle is addiction and alcoholism, then what's the incentive? You know, what is the opportunity? And here you have the opportunity program.
Right, absolutely. And I guess I'm a little curious. Do you think that that incentive that was there provided to you and your fellow, inmates and friends that you made wouldn't have been possible had those programs not been in place, had those opportunities not been provided to you? Do you think that you would have kind of, had that change of mind and, change of desire to kind of change things once you got out of prison?
So I could only answer from my own experience. And from my experience, I would tell you absolutely not. Because I had been in jail many times in the past, and I've never found the incentive to recover. I've never found the desire to kind of dig deep. I never had a reason, So I do. With that being said, it's possible. There's people who do it. They go to jail and they get there and they say, "Okay, I'm never coming back here again." Like that does happen,
Right.
But for a large number of us, it's just a routine thing. It's just a normal, run of the mill. I'm used to this. This is the life that was handed to me, kind of thing. So when something like the opportunity program, and there's many other programs that they have going on at the jail right now. They have the Long Stop program, which is a more intense, longer drug and alcohol treatment program. They have a culinary program, which they did recently launch, and that's been really successful, where they're teaching guys how to cook food and get a Serve Safe certificate. And here you're building, you're feeling a part of something. You see the pictures of these guys at these graduations, and they have genuine smiles on their faces because they're genuinely accomplishing something. And then you have guys like Lou Evangelitis. I mean, this is a sheriff, and he has a large schedule, I'm sure. But the reason him and I had built a report is because he goes to every single graduation that Shortstop has, and we have a graduation every 3 months. And I was in that program for over a year. I stayed on as grad support. So I had a chance to actually get to know Lou a little bit because he was there, because he was present, and that is, in my opinion, that is the difference that makes a difference. So if there's other politicians out there that are wondering how they can make a difference in their communities, it's by being there. It's by being an intimate part of the structure that takes place. I mean, these guys, this guy, is a huge reason as to why I'm where I'm at. Not just the programs, but him actually physically being there and believing in us. I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's super powerful stuff.
John, and you and I are friends on Facebook, and I've seen quite a few live stream videos that you do playing your guitar. So, and I see you have it right next to you there. I asked if you would be willing to just play a little bit for us now live, because you are such a talented musician.
Absolutely.
Is this an original song you're playing, something you wrote, or?
Yes, this is an original song that I wrote. It was the first song that I wrote when I got out. And because I was a graduate of the songwriting program, I was able to come up with a pretty beautiful song that was pretty popular. So, and I also wrote it for a woman that I had cared about very much, who passed away from cancer. And this is the song that I wrote for her. It's called Tears of Rain. Spring rain is falling onto your grave. It's making me numb to all this pain. It's okay, they say, to feel so blue. Really know that heaven welcomes you. But now we got an angel named Sabrina. And this cruel world couldn't be much meaner. We all got an angel just like Sabrina. Now she's crying tears free. The ground is cold, but my hopes are so high. We hope that this song reaches the sky. And I know that your soul is smiling down. Tell me that some way, someday we'll meet again. Now we got an angel just like Sabrina. In this cool world, couldn't be much meaner. Angel that's named Sabrina. Now she's crying tears free. She's crying tears of rain. Tears free.
Thank you. That was very, very
Bravo.
beautiful.
Bravo.
We really appreciate you sharing that with us. And I know Nino wants to get into some more policy questions. So I'll let you go, Nino.
Yeah, sorry for the abrupt change here. It was great guitar playing. I played myself, so it sounded good to me. Glad to see that you gained those skills out of that program, and I've made so much out of it.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the positive results that come from those opportunities provided to people like you while in prison. Seeing the positive effects it's had on your life, providing that opportunity that you chose to seize upon. I'm curious to know, in addition to other states and localities implementing programs like the STOP program and the Opportunity program throughout the country, what other criminal justice system issues do you think are kind of top priority? What do you believe more or less are the biggest cracks in the system? Being on the inside of that, on the flip side of that, from the inside out, that you think people should be paying attention to prevent people from recidivizing and falling back into that prison cycle.
So for so long, there was no connection. There was no compassion. There was no connection. It was largely just you committed a crime, you go to jail, and you sit in your cell and deal with it. That was the rough and tumble idea of criminal justice reform. I think that we're so used to. I remember distinctly even going to the Worcester County, and it was like the cops were separate from us. They were in their bubbles. They were protected. We were down on the blocks, and there was a separation that took place. And when you're separated from your community, you really start to embody the things that are criminal. I was a horrible criminal. There was nothing about the criminal activity that I committed that made me a criminal more than just the idea that I needed more alcohol and drugs. It was always finding ways and means to get more. There was nothing, criminal minded about the way that I acted. So when I got to the jail and now you're in this population of guys who are all, there's like this kind of politics that takes place in the jail, and there's no direction. There's no one to talk to about your issues. Or this is before, and what happened was we policed ourselves, and out of that you get more trauma, more recidivism. You get more involved in that kind of life. I myself am a reformed gang member that I got involved with at the jail during the times where there wasn't so much programming available. So to answer your question, I think just a human connection is let's treat these people like humans, because they are humans. They made mistakes. A lot of them almost, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure you guys have it somewhere, but the numbers are through the roof. Most of these people are just alcoholics and addicts who need the help. They need compassion. They need human connection. They need incentive, and they need communication, and they need people to work together. It takes a community. And here you have, in this local area, you have a community of people that are working together, and now you see the results.
Yeah, I do remember, John, the sheriff telling us that something like 90% of the inmates in his facility had drug addictions or drug or alcohol addiction. So basically addiction was the thing that they were dealing with. And I know you told me that your addiction began in middle school, and he said that that is sort of the most common age.
Yeah. In middle school, I got involved 13 years old, and now I see my nephews and my relatives that are at that age now, and I think to myself, what was I doing? Because there was I had a disconnection from my community. I had found a new community to be a part of, and that's why these programs are so important, because now you are a part of something, and it feels like you're a part of something. And a lot of these guys never felt a part of something ever in their lives. I know when I graduated shortstop, I wrote a graduation speech because I had never graduated anything before in my life. And it really meant a lot to me to be able to graduate from something, and I remember writing that, and the sheriff actually asked for a copy of it. I wonder if he still has that. I know I still have the copy because it just means a lot. It really means a lot to be a part of something, so.
John, it sounds like a lot of the things you're talking about and your experience in terms of what worked and the reforms are really in alignment with many of the ALEC model policies. And I wondered if Nino could just talk about what are some of the foundational values of what we espouse and what our members look for when it comes to criminal justice reform.
Yeah, we have quite a few model policies that address this, and these are really ideas that states can kind of take and implement, in their own ways to kind of foster the programs that John is talking about right here. Before I talk about what the actual models are, I think John did a really great job of defining the tone and the context of this here. There's a certain wavelength, if you will, that's operating within the prisons, right? An energy, a mentality, perspective, that prisoners and inmates have, many of whom are there, as repeat offenders. And I think kind of the greater goal here with prison programs, community corrections programs, is to open a door to these prisoners and say, hey, you don't have to be here if you don't want to. There's an opportunity for you to change things so that you're not back here once you get out. And that's really, I think, what we are trying to accomplish with model policies to improve and give prisoners opportunities. Resolutions like our supportive reentry programs, helping prisoners get back into society and to adjust appropriately and properly so that they do have something to look forward to. We have a resolution on faith-based programming to provide inmates with faith-based resources and religious resources to give them that sense of connection and meaning to what, like John is talking about there. So they're not just, subject and victim to whatever the, mentality is or gang culture is while in prison. We have another model policy, our Recidivism Reduction Act, which is a little more wonky oriented, focused on how legislators can actually go about implementing recidivism efforts and data collection and whatnot. It's interesting, 96% of incarcerated individuals will all be released from prison eventually, kind of nationally among the states. 96% of them. I think a lot of people just kind of think once you have the trial, the conviction, it's problem solved. It's like it's done. Justice was served, even if it wasn't an overly harsh sentence or anything like that. And we just kind of forget about people, generally speaking. But that's not the case. They're going to come back. They're going to have to come back into society if they don't have a life sentence. About 23 to 64% is the recidivism rate on average between, the United States. About half of our states have a recidivism rate of 32% or higher.
Wow.
So it just shows how many people may not be provided these opportunities that may take advantage of it or would take advantage of it if they had the opportunity to.
Yeah, I know, John, that you participate currently, and I'm not sure if you were introduced to it while you were incarcerated, but in some faith-based community programs there in Dudley. Do you want to share with us how those programs have helped you?
Absolutely. The faith-based programs in this area is actually the sober house that I went to. It's called Reconciliation House Incorporated. Pastor Janice Ford is the president of that program. She's also the director of pastoral services at the jail. And she's another person who is in the field. She's in the trenches, working face to face, making those human connections with people, to really feel like that someone's actually listening, and she took the time to do that. And then she opened up the Sober House some years back, and I went there as a resident, and I'm an alumni from that Sober House. And then when I was just getting there, she opened up another nonprofit called Opening the Word Peer Recovery Center. And that's a recovery center that's downtown in Webster, Massachusetts. And we offer alternative forms of recovery, such as recovery art, music in recovery, recovery yoga. We have CrossFit classes that are available. I mean, just alternative from the 12-step kind of format that we're so used to in recovery, which is very important, but it's also important for people to have alternative options. And she has a Bible study that is very popular that we do every Tuesday night. And it's a recovery-based Bible study that we do. And, the fact that Pastor Janice is a part of my life and a part of Sheriff Lou Evangelisti's team, it does not even surprise me in the least, because if it wasn't for their support, I would not be where I'm at. And ironically enough, just recently, I was nominated to the board of directors for Reconciliation House Incorporated. So here I am, an alumni who now sits and rubs shoulders with some very educated and elite members of the community who are all working together for this same common cause. And it comes back to this theme over and over again. I talk about community, working together, connection. This is the stuff that's going to change lives. This is the stuff that helped to change my life. And that's the stuff that's happening in the jails now, or at least at the Worcester County House of Corrections. So you mentioned reentry, and that reminded me of one of the other programs that the sheriff offers up there now. It's called the Freedom Forward Fair. And what that is basically it's a job fair that's set up like a job fair, but it also has things that you can do. What kind of stuff do you need when you get out? So the director of substance abuse at the time was Lisa Baudre, and she gave me the assignment to talk to a couple of guys on a unit and ask them the basic things that they need when they get out of jail. And so I sat down with a couple of my peers and I wrote down the general things that they need. And it was, common food, clothing, housing, their license, a job, recovery support, these kinds of social programs that are available. So in the past, what they would do is staple a packet of information and hand it to you on your way out the door and say, good luck. Those are your resources. Have at it. Now they created this Freedom Forward Fair where you have an in-person opportunity to make connections with people. And at this fair, they had the Registry of Motor Vehicles, they had Mass Rehab, they had various nonprofit organizations like Fresh Start and Legendary Legacies. They had the food stamp office was there. They had, just the community college, Quinsigamond Community College was there. So many different people from the community. And now you have a chance to have a face-to-face, in-person, real-life connection with people, which makes a difference. That's the difference that makes a difference, is that human connection.
Thank you so much, John. And before we close out, I want to share a photo that you had shared with your friends on Facebook. As I went through your Facebook feed and looked at your pictures, it looked to me like there were lots of family photos. It looked like lots of backyard barbecues. And you told me these are nieces and nephews you're hanging out with. And tell me about that idea of reconnecting with your family. You said you spent 10 years in a really bad place in your life where you didn't have a lot of contact with your family. What's this life like for you now?
I can remember when I was actively using drugs and alcohol and thinking to myself, man, things couldn't possibly get any worse. And you know what happened? They got worse because I was still actively drinking and drugging. I'm at this point in my recovery now where I can't even imagine things getting any better for me. And you know what? It just keeps getting better. It just keeps getting better. We hear in the halls of recovery all the time that the progression of the disease is real. And I've been saying as often as I can that the progression works in both ways. It progressively gets better when you actually start putting the action in to making your life better. And what you're seeing here is a picture of me and my nieces and nephews in my living room that we're doing this interview in. And the beautiful thing about this photo is the fact that this never happened before. I didn't have a home. I never cared to have a home. I never had the time for anything like that. All I had to do in my life when I was active was find ways and means to get more. So I never had a job. I never cared for any of these things. I was just manipulative, and I wanted to feel better. And the only way I understood how to feel better was to find ways and means to get more drugs and alcohol. So what you're seeing is a beautiful depiction of like what happens when you actually start to put in the work. This is what happens. I have a home today. I have a job today. I have a title. I'm involved in my community. My sister is proud of me. My mother is proud of me. My father, my family, the progress that I made, my friends, they see this example and they're like, John, it's so good to see what you're doing. And you know what? I couldn't have done it without any of them. You know, the people in the local recovery fellowship, they went out of their way to help me furnish my apartment. They helped me get a job. I'm employed because of them. You know, and it's something I couldn't even have imagined. When I was in that music program, that moment when I had a confrontation that could have been a physical altercation, that could have put me in the hole, and I would have been pulled out of the shortstop and opportunity program. If I had made the wrong decision in that moment, I wouldn't have where I am. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. None of these things would have taken place. And so with that opportunity came the incentive to make a better choice, to do something better for my life. And here we are.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so beautiful. And, you know, do you have any last questions or any thoughts that you want to get in?
You know, I just really want to thank John for speaking with us today and giving our viewers and members an opportunity to really see firsthand the benefits of programs like these actually acted out, and see the value and potential that lies in those programs. And thank you, John, for being such a great ambassador to your community. Not just that, the local Worcester County, but the larger, you know, inmates who have decided to seize those opportunities provided to get their lives back on track. I think you're a real testament to the power of these programs, and, you know, the power and determination that lies within individuals to change their lives and create a better society for everybody, you know, when provided the opportunity. And I'd love to see more of them. So thank you.
Thank you, Nino. I loved that. John, do you get the last word? Anything you want to add before we close?
I just want to thank you guys again. I have to underline the fact that if you know, this is the communication and connection that I've been talking about through this whole interview. The fact that you're willing to reach out to a guy like me and ask me on a platform like this, you know, to share my experience, strength, and hope. That is the kind of things, that's the difference that makes a difference. So thank you so much for having me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Same to you. And thanks to all of you who watched and commented. It was just a lot of fun, and I learned so much from hearing from you. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time on another ALEC TV live stream.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.